All right, good morning, everyone. Let's get started here. Thanks for joining us today. So the goal this morning is to cover our latest release of Metric Insights. We're going to go through the key functionality that we've introduced in the release that came out last week. I'm Mike Smitherman. I've got Louis with us as well. For those that have been on our previous webinars, you'll know us both. Just some housekeeping, so the lines are muted, but we'll take Q&A through the Q&A or chat window. If it makes sense, we'll answer questions as we go along, so feel free to enter those, or we'll leave a little time at the end to answer that. The webinar is being recorded. Link will be sent out afterwards, but you can always find this stuff on our blog. Expect it to be there about a day after. So with that, let's get started. So, just to set the ground here, and again, for those customers or people who've been on previous webinars, this is nothing new to you, but the platform that Metric Insights sells really falls into sort of three categories of functionality. And you'll see that the 5.3 release that we're going to talk about today, we've addressed some enhancements in each of these areas, but essentially it falls into the ability to organize your content that you have out there, reports, metrics, data, through our consolidated portal. It's the ability to enrich that content by automatically uncovering anomalies and exceptions in your data, and then having a meaningful way of distributing that to users.
Echo.
Just got a note saying there's an echo in the audio here. Let me let's try this. Yeah, okay, we'll keep going. Hopefully we can solve that. So organize your content, enrich it, and distribute it. So let's jump across to the functionality that we've added in each of these areas. So the first thing that we're going to cover this morning is the concept of alert simulation, and obviously this falls into the anomaly detection and the distribution aspect of the product. So alerting has been a key piece of functionality in the product already. One of the challenges is, and one of the things we're always trying to solve with users is how do we avoid information overload? How do we ensure that users are just getting the data they need when they need it? And one way of doing that is through the concept of simulating any alerts that you set up to make sure that they're fully tuned and that users are just getting alerted to critical information. They're not being alerted all the time. So the idea with this piece of functionality is that we can avoid alert overload. It lets you tune parameters before you start sending out alerts, and ensures, again, that a meaningful alert is getting out there that your users can take action on. So let's jump across to a demo of this. I'm going to hand over to Louis for him to show you this, and we'll go from there.
Absolutely, thank you, Mike. See if I can switch to this. Great. So we'll start our demo today, Mike, with in the data sets that we released in version 5.0 of our solution. So as a little quick reminder, the data sets for us functions as an additional layer between all your data sources that you have and the elements that are created inside of Metric Insights. So the idea is to give users who have access to the data the ability to create content in Metric Insights without requiring the need to know anything about the data extract, nothing to do about SQL, or any specific syntax that you would need to know in order to talk to a third-party application and so on. Data is right there, ready to be used at this point. And as you know, with Metric Insights, you can extract data from any types of data sources, may that be your favorite business intelligence tool, any databases, cloud-based application, and so on. So in the example that we'll be working with today, we'll be dealing with a fictitious wine store that sells wine around 8 countries around the world, 4 different sales channels, and 3 different product categories. The data set that we're dealing with today has been extracted from a relational database, in this example, on a daily load schedule. So as a result of that, what we have is we have over 8 months of daily snapshot of this particular data that Metric Insights brought in daily. So at this point, you know, as I said before, you're able to create any types of elements within Metric Insights within those data sets. So if I want to go ahead and build a metric, I just click on my build metric here, and now I'm building to this editor that allows me to go step by step in order to easily create a metric. So in this example here, since I have daily data, I'd like to create a daily metric. We'll do the sum of my sales, but could it be any of these KPIs there? My snapshot date will remain my dates that I want to use for my time series. And here we'll call it daily sales webinar. And so that will be the name of this particular metric. I would like to have it dimensioned by country. We'll map it to my country dimension. And as I'm adding this metric here, what you're seeing is you'll see a simulation of this particular metric being shown immediately on the right-hand side. So if I like this particular metric, then I can decide to add another one. We want to say, okay, now I'd like to create, you know, I'd like to create another one where I do daily cost. Also for the webinar, dimension is similar fashion, can add them on, and now you're seeing your simulation for daily cost and so on. So it's a quick and easy way to demonstrate that taking your data you have in a data set to create element. And if I go ahead and build all my metrics, they will be created and ready to use on the, you know, in the application immediately. So with the scope of this demo here and continuing to talk about alert simulation, let's say I ran this metric, the metric has been run, and this is the end result that you have. So you're familiar with our metrics, the time series data set, data point here that we have. So in this case, you're looking at data over 4 weeks worth of data, looking at my daily sales. In this example, we're showing it dimensioned by for Canada, but could have been for any other dimensional values that we have in the application. So that being said, now let's go directly into the alert simulation. So now I'll select my alert icon. And the idea here is I will go ahead and create a new alerting rules. So as you know, we have many different types of rules that we can do in the system. You know, we have, of course, threshold-based alerting, but you want to do any types of interesting alerting scenarios. You can compare your data points against prior value, averages or prior value, volatility level, which means your, you know, your bands of standard deviation bands and so on, and combining your alerts together. So for the sake of this example, let's select averages or prior value. If I select this, then what I want to go is just go ahead and build my alert criteria. So this example, I say alert me if I have X%, in this case, I'll start with 10% above or below the averages of the all days of the week for the past month, okay? And I'd like this alert to be triggered every time it happens. Now, if I can make my simulation based on 30 days of data, or X amount of days you want, or X amount of time that you want, in this case, I'll do on 30 days of data. And the first simulation I'd like to run is for all the values that I have, meaning all the dimensional values that I have. Simulating this, you know, will tell me really quickly that on each and every dimensional values, this alert would have triggered 44 times over the past 30 days. That's obviously too much. So the criteria is not solid or is not high enough in order to just get the data points that you want. So if I go and change my percentage here, simulate again, then obviously the simulation comes back, and now you're seeing that the simulation now is showing us that across all those different dimensional values here, it would have triggered 12 times over the past 30 days. So that's great. That sounds like a nice criteria, with removing all the noise and so on, and just focusing on these. If I want to see what happened for one particular country, let's select Canada here, and I simulate that, then you'll see where those 3 alerts that Canada were telling us that Canada was would have triggered would have been on these particular data points. So in a nutshell, just to recap on this, you know, here it helps you calibrate your alert criteria to get the alert that matters and filter all the noises out. So that's it, Mike.
Sounds good, Louis. So let's go back to the slides here. So again, you know, based on historical data that you have in the system, before you publish an alert, you can ensure that it's, you know, as Louis termed it, filter out the noise and make sure people are getting just what they need on that criteria. So that's the first new piece of functionality that we've added in 5.3. The second one is the concept of dataset reports. And essentially, for those that are familiar with the platform, we have a basic reporting engine within the platform, and that has essentially been overhauled in this latest release. Louis touched on datasets just now, the ability to bring in snapshots of data from any source. And these reports can be easily built off of data sets. You can see there's sort of drag and drop report creation now. You can more easily format and design reports to make them look and feel how you want. And essentially, by using the data sets, you'll see that it's a way of enabling non-technical users to create reports as well. And then finally, in the current product, you can burst those reports out to users via email. You also see now that you can also send that content very easily up to an FTP site or shared folders if you want to attach that content and push it out for use elsewhere. So let's jump across into the product again, and we'll take a look at this.
Fantastic. Great. So what we'll do now is we'll go back to the same data set that we started this with, and taking a look at this particular data set. Now what I'd like to do is actually let's go and have fun with those reports today. So first thing I'd like to see here, I have about, it's a pretty large data set row. So why don't I just keep my country, channel, and product category. I'll take my product and my subcategories out. And what I'm interested in is having the sum of my sales here. And I'll uncheck my other KPIs for the moment. So once I do this, select the data sets that you want, you can apply those changes here. And now you're seeing that, okay, this is fantastic. This is the exact data set that I want to work with. We can save this as any particular view, and we'll call it our standard report. A name is required. Standard report. I will share this with my public here, so everybody that has access to this data can see it. And now that I have this view, I can go ahead and build a report. Similar fashion, but now we're going to build a report. So this will be new for all of you guys. I haven't worked yet with the datasets report, and now we are into our datasets report editor. So at this point here, I have this data, and I would be interested into manipulating a little bit of these columns or changing a little bit of these columns. So as an example here, I may want to keep the sum of my sales into my format here. I can change the display mask of this particular fields that I have. You have the ability to apply conditional formatting into our fields as well. So if I want to select any fields that are less than these specific values or things like that, you have the ability to highlight those fields very clearly and easily part of the report. And when you apply those changes here, you can even see a report that will be applied in the viewer. This example, I want to see this report 300 pixels here. I'd like to see this report in my email and apply it here. So as you can see here, very simply, you can go and have your particular report. You can manipulate your fields and so on within this, apply any types of formattings. So what I'd like to do now that I have this particular table, is I'd like to add a crosstab to this report as well. So if I drag and drop this crosstab into our table here, what I'm seeing is that I have my particular rows. So in this case, I'd like to have my country as my columns, my rows. And then for my columns, I'll have my channels, and I'll add my product category. What I'd like to see is my measure, and I'd like to see my sum of sales. We'll add a total to all of these. And we can even do also another part of conditional formatting if you would want to do this here as well. So we'll just accept these things as they are. We can apply this here. And what you're then seeing is very easily a nice little crosstab that is being applied to our particular report. Now, the third thing that I'd like to do at this point is to perhaps add a chart to this report as well. So adding a chart, as you can see, it's all drag and drop. So in this particular example here, I'd like to have my take a look at my country, and then we'll chart a few KPIs on this particular report. And the first one I'd like to do is the sum of my sales. And if I add additional measures, as here could be the count of my channels, and or the sum of other KPIs that you would have had on this report as well. You can format your axes and everything, kind of have as many KPIs as you want to see on this particular report. apply this here, and now you're seeing your charts and your report that is being applied on the screen. So now that you have those that have been created, you can go ahead and drag and drop your different elements that you have. In this case, I would probably like to see my charts to be on top of my report. We want to have my crosstab to be seen right below this. And in terms of this particular table here, maybe I just don't necessarily need to see it in the report, in the viewer, or in the email, because my crosstab and my charts should work just fine. So now you have this being applied. And for the thumbnail of my email, the thumbnail of my tiles here, I can show this as my report. So as saving and viewing this here at this point, what you'll end up seeing is the quick report that we just created with our different sum of charts and so on, and then our crosstab that is right there. Because our data has been snapshotted on a daily basis, you can go ahead and change your point of view here, and it's extremely easy to go ahead and see the report for different times and point in times and so on. So I'll go back and re-edit this, this report. The only thing I forgot to do is I'd like to go ahead and save it into my webinar folder here. So, so we can save them and have all the information to be contained in the same location.
So just while he's doing that, so key points are more of a sort of look at a drag and drop type functionality to create the reports. We didn't look at it in detail, but the ability to change fonts and colors and highlights, rows and columns, whatever you want to make it look and feel the way you need it to. For those that are using the existing report functionality, you'll know that we actually save the data within the report in that functionality. In this case, it's really just like a window through onto your data set for users. So that's why we have this ability to have it highly formatted in the way that you see.
Perfect.
Want to talk about that attachment?
Oh yeah, as I'm clicking to view this, what I just added there is the attachment. So when you're sending this report like this in an email, oftentimes people would like to have this report in an attachment. So there could be the same exact report that you're seeing this in a PDF, nicely formatted in a PDF. You can have the detail of the table that we saw below into an Excel spreadsheet, into formatted CSV file, etc., etc. So many different options that we can do to add to this report when it's being sent out, when it's being pushed out. And the same format, we'll take a look at this when we start creating our burst at the end with the content that we have in the webinar. And obviously,
let's actually look at the burst now, Louis. Let's just show how we can send this report to an FTP site.
Absolutely. So in this example here, we have our standard tile that we just created, a standard report that we have. And if I go ahead and I drag this particular report into my webinar folder that we have, I can go ahead and create a burst from there. So I want to include this, this particular report in the new burst.
Remember, bursting historically has been sending this content out via email on a particular schedule to users.
There you go. And the content that we have here, so now we are into the process of creating this particular burst. So my first burst, if I could spell, that would help. Okay, and then the content will be this particular report that we just had. So again, we follow a particular schedule. You can create your own schedule and so on for the distribution. And then we're sending this burst or this via email. That's what Mike was talking about also. It's also possible to attach it to an FTP server or to a shared drive. So for my FTP server, we want to put it into my local folder to share this into. And for my FTP drive here, I also have a media drive where I'd like the attachment of this data to be sent out to these particular location. And the attachment that you're sending in these particular location could be anything else. Then, so for our report, we selected an Excel spreadsheet, but perhaps I would like to put a CSV into this location here, and this one I just want to put a PDF. So the system will be smart enough to put at the right location the content that you want to put. And as we're looking into burst here, since it's been a while, just to remind yourself that we can multiple different email template. You can select the templates that you like, and so on, and then you know, a lot of options to customize the way your email is going to look like. And when you run it, then after that we can preview and run it. So Yeah.
So sending attachments out to FTP, shared drives, potentially ways of archiving information, but also, if you want to drop content into folders that other users have access to, they can go and pull it from there. So we're going to touch on another use of the reporting engine now. So we looked at sort of formatted reports on top of data sets. We can also generate exception reports on top of data sets as well. So a way of sort of cutting through the noise of your data. So Louis, do you want to?
Yeah. So I'd like to start discussing this part of the demo with actually one of our, any business intelligence tool. This example here, taking a look at a Tableau dashboard. And we find and we hear all the time that those dashboards are great for high-level overview of your business. So in this example here, same business, our wine business, want to see what happened and what performed yesterday. So it's a fantastic way to see what's going on and what happened yesterday. What this dashboard is telling me is that, in a nutshell, I'm selling more red wine than I'm selling champagne. Looks like my website seems to be my most profitable sales channel. So selling via my web versus email marketing, I'm getting more business this way. And my top 5 product in sales seems to be highly profitable for most of them, as we can confirm on the right-hand side. So dashboards are a fantastic way to tell me this information. What this dashboard, however, is not telling me is there any combination of these filters that I should be paying attention to. Remember, we have a lot of different countries, channels, product category, and so on. It's very hard to go day by day to go through all those different filter combinations. I don't really know what I need to pay attention to. And here, are there any product categories that are underperforming compared to their average, and so on and so on. So bottom line is that it's hard to find details in the data that matters. So what we did here is that, similar to our previous story, we connected to this Tableau dashboard and we extracted the information. We created a daily snapshot data sets of the data that we had in this Tableau dashboard. So at this point, the question that I would be interested to find out, which is really hard to do manually or with any other BI tools, is that what are my combination of country, channel, and product category where my sales are 50% down compared to yesterday, right? So we're going to compare two instances of data, yesterday to yesterday and so on, to see where this situation happens. So back to this. So country, channels, and product category. I'm only interested in looking at my total sales amount that I've fell by more than 50%. So in this example, I'll take the sum of my total sales amount. And now what I want to do is track changes between 2 instances. So I select my last 2 instances here. Like I said, I'm interested right now in seeing what changes in my data. But it's important to mention here that you can also compare 2 data sets to see if there's something new that happened in your data that wasn't there yesterday, or something that was removed as well. But for this use case, let's focus on changes. So the changes that I'm interested here is that I want to find out where the sum of my total sales amount right now would be less than my prior sum of my total sales amount. And we'll do this for a percentage, and we talked about 50%. So just making this rule like this, if I want to go and apply my changes here, now I'm being presented with this result set, which looks pretty right? We compare those 2 columns. So that's fantastic. However, I'd like to also add a field, perhaps, to show me what that percentage really is. I can add a derived field to set this data set as well. Let's call it simply percentage changes. And it will be a percentages, so we'll select that mask. And then you simply go ahead and build the expression. So similar to what we do normally in the application, I want to compare my prior sum of total sales amount compared to my current sum of my sales amount, sum of sales here. And I'll divide that by, obviously, my prior sales. So we have our KPI expression that has been added. Let's see if I did that correctly. It's added there. Apply the changes. And now let's see those percentages here. Fantastic. I have the data and the report for that view that I would like to use. So I'll save this view. And we'll call it quite simply 50% down. I'll make this view public so people can use it. Save the view. And great, now we have that. So let's go ahead, same paradigm. We'll go ahead and build a report. So let's go ahead, same paradigm. We'll go ahead and build a report. If you're noticing, no SQL, no coding, etc. Just go ahead and build a report. Being presented back with my report content again. I could go ahead and play with formatting and so on, but I think you guys will want to do this by, with the application itself. Very simple to change anything here, add an edit mask and so on. But what I'm interested in doing in this particular case here is to add a visualization to this particular report. So what I'm dragging here and what I'll be looking for is my sales. I think I have a sales analysis dashboard. We'll select the same one here, my Tableau sales analysis dashboard. And then what I'll be able to do is, remember the filters that I had in Tableau on the left-hand side? I'll map them with the columns that I have within Metric Insights. So I have our report columns are going to be matched to the filters inside of Tableau. So here, countries equal to will be country, channels and channels, and product category match to product category. I will display, this like this, and that looks good. And then we'll keep the visualization to be shown this way. I'll apply the changes here. And now what you'll end up seeing is you'll see that dashboard below this particular report. And you see we give us a synopsis of what this report will look like for the first. So Australia, store visit, wine furniture, and you see it pre-filtered at the right location. So let's go ahead and save that to my webinar folder again here. And we have our data, save this and visualize it. So if I go ahead and visualize it now, they'll have the report, and extremely intuitive. The great things now, as I was telling you in my introduction, is that if I want to see what's happening in any areas, now your dashboard is in context. So if I want to select what's happening in Germany for my wine furniture, you're selecting this, it passes along the filter information to Tableau and or any BI tools, and then show you the results here. So now you know exactly what's happening in context of the exception that you were looking for.
Thanks. So again, the ability to add our visualizations, but also tying it to your existing BI tool visualizations as well, lets you, generate those exception change type lists and help users sort of jump to what they need to see quicker. Okay, so alert simulation, dataset reports. Final thing we want to talk about is we've now done an integration with Slack for those of you using it, the collaboration tool. And there's a number of ways that we integrate with Slack now. And we'll go through each of these, but the ability to send those alerts that we were looking at in the first instance directly to a Slack channel. So, we can do email, we can do to the phone. You can now also send those to Slack. The ability to query the Metric Insights content, so what you see through the portal directly from Slack itself. And also the ability for Slack to suggest content that we have within the portal as you're collaborating with other users, and we'll show examples of all three of these. But obviously the intent is that we can bring data into the conversations that users are having within Slack and allow them to easily share that content. So the first thing we want to look at is this concept of sending alerts to Slack. And so this is simply having a different endpoint for your alerts. So you'll see if you look up on the, I don't know whether this is actually showing on the preview. Is it coming up, sorry? Okay, it is. So the ability in the top right-hand corner there for you to send alerts to a channel, to be alerted to that. You'll see in this case, we've had an alert come through into our Slack environment. So we're in a particular channel that's focused around sales and marketing, and we've delivered that alert to that channel. It's got the alert criteria. It's got a link back into Metric Insights. It's also delivered and unfilled the image of what that particular metric looks like. So I can zoom in on that metric, but I can also link through to the live version of it back in Metric Insights. So step one is sending alerts to a particular channel. Step two is we have essentially an app that you can install in your Slack environment. And this is a way of then starting to query Metric Insights from within Slack directly. And the first thing you can do is, if I'm in Slack and I know the name of a particular element within Metric Insights, I can type that in, and the app will go out and pull that information from Metric Insights. So it'll bring me back the latest values. This is similar to sort of what you would see on a tile within our portal. So the name of the element, the latest value, the date of that value, and again, the image of that particular element. So I've pulled that, that's private to me within the app. I can then share that out to any channels that have permissions to share to. So I might take this and push it into the channel where we're talking about sales and marketing. That you'll see at the top then, has shared that publicly with anyone who has access to that particular channel, and we can continue our discussion around it. So that's one way of doing it. The second way is perhaps I don't know the name of all the elements that I want. I know that there's content within Metric Insights around sales. I'm responsible for Canada. I just want to ask a sort of more natural language question around what's available. So I can direct my question to the app directly. And what's happening there is we're using natural language processing to basically decode that statement. So what were sales in Canada yesterday? And it's essentially recognizing that, you know, sales is a keyword, that dimension is Canada, and that yesterday it's a daily metric, it's a daily piece of content that we're interested in. And at the top here, it's basically suggested or brought me back a list of all content related to that. And as Louis just did there, I can come in and preview the piece of content that I'm interested in. So it was actually the Tableau dashboard I was after. And again, when I previewed that, it's bringing me back an accurate image of the last time it updated. And I can share that up to our channel again and use that in our conversations at the top. So send an alert to Slack, query an element directly. When I don't know the element name, be able to query the portal with more natural language type expressions. Final thing we can do is add the app to a channel itself. So we're up in the channels area now. Imagine that this is a sales and marketing channel. All users in my department have access to this. We're having conversations around the data. You know, Louis and I are discussing Canada sales. And Louis wants to share a chart with me directly within the channel. So I can address the application directly. I can, again, enter the name of the piece of content that I want to share. It will unfurl it again, and I can share, Louis can share this with me directly in the channel. When he brought it back there, you'll see that it's only visible to him initially. He can confirm it's the right bit of content, and he can share it with me. Again, when he shares that, now that's publicly, well, it's available to anyone who has access to that channel. Again, if you don't know what you're looking for, we can do the natural language search. And in this case, what's happening is I'm not addressing the app directly. Louis and I might be having a conversation around something that we heard went on with the website yesterday. And I can again query the data and try and find out what's available to that particular content. And then the final thing is you can have the app listening on the channel itself. So, you know, Louis and I are discussing a particular issue with marketing. He's reaching out to me to ask a particular question. You know, do you know what happened with website visits yesterday? When he sends this message, again, the Metric Insights app is basically listening on this channel, and if it spots a message where it feels that there's a potential piece of content that might help with our discussion, it's going to suggest it to Louis directly, privately within the channel. And if he feels that this is something that's useful, again, he can preview that content and share it with, if it worked, we almost got through, share it with me. Again, he can preview that content, and actually, you know, the app is almost jumping into the conversation and saying, I know, I might know the answer to this, take a look at this. So we ran through that pretty quickly, but you know, the ability to send an alert to Slack the ability to query the portal, so find content within the portal, and the ability to have the application listening on the channel that you're having conversations in. So I think we've got a question.
Hey, Mike, we have a relevant questions here.
Louis, they won't have you talking over there.
I was just trying to read and see it. Is there any way to extend the Slack integration functionality to other communication platforms?
Yeah, so we've essentially written this as a plugin, if you like, to Slack in a fairly generic way. So we don't have a roadmap yet, as we're looking to get the completeness of functionality in Slack. But absolutely, the intention is that we could take this sort of integration and apply it to other collaboration type tools. It's been written in a way that allows us to do that. So that's the Slack integration. So those three areas, alert simulation, reports, and Slack integration, are some of the highlights of 5.3, which was released, I think, last week, Louis?
That's right. That's right.
So that is available for customers on the line. Reach out to account managers if you're interested in getting your hands on that. We're actually doing another point release of 5.3 next week because we've added in an additional piece of functionality, and I just wanted to give you a preview of that as well and show you what the highlight of that is. And again, this is going GA next week. And this falls into the distribution aspect, I guess, of metric insights. So this piece of functionality is related around being able to curate sort of highly formatted pages, as we're calling them, for users. And for those that are familiar with the platform, we have the ability to, or you may know we have the ability to embed content from metric insights within other applications. And we're basically taking that functionality now and using it to allow you to create highly sort of curated live pages for users and make those available either directly embedded within the metric insights application, as we'll show you, or take them and embed them in your own sort of skinned portal, your own intranet site, whatever it might be. I just wanted to give you a sort of preview of what this is and what's coming out. So let's jump back to metric insights here. So you're looking at sort of the familiar portal view that we have today. The difference you'll see is up in the left-hand side now, at the top, I have a series of tabs, if you like, which are representing these different portal pages that I've created for our demo environment. And so essentially, the page that you're familiar with now can almost become a catalog of your content for users that you want to give access to. It's a way of searching for content. But with the new portal pages, there's the ability to give them more, I guess, curated views of that content in a way that makes sense. And the sort of things you can embed are everything that you would see in the portal. So, what you're looking at the top here is, we've created a design, we're embedding spark lines from different elements, we're embedding a live chart here. Down the bottom, I'm embedding images, accurate images that you would see on sort of the preview of tiles for different external dashboards that we're interested in. And obviously all these are hyperlinked through to the piece of content that you're interested in. So I can curate pages that just make sense. I may have a sales page where I'm interested in bringing all my sales tiles in, but I also want to show one of those exception reports that Louis just created earlier. Again, it's the live report here, and include the live Tableau dashboard down the bottom. All in one page, so I don't have to go off to different elements. And really you've got the free form to sort of lay these pages out, brand them in any which way you want, and include any content you want on the same page. Could be multiple BI tools on the same page, could be a combination of BI tools and metric insights content, whatever you want. So these portal pages obviously have a permission structure around them as well. So you can user and group permissioning, give people access to those pages. They can be a start page for users. So every time I come in, I'm responsible for sales, I might land on the sales page rather than the Metric Insights homepage that we were typically used to. And then the final thing I wanted to touch on is the fact that these pages can also exist externally to the Metric Insights portal that you're familiar with. So we've created here just a totally different framework for navigation. Think of this as sort of an intranet site or something where I have access, through a menu on the left-hand side rather than what you're typically used to seeing. These pages are embedded within this particular framework, and I can create a totally different look and feel to sort of what you're used to in the Metric Insights application today, if there's a requirement to sort of brand this in a totally different way. So again, the idea is that we can curate experiences. It's another way of distributing this content out to users or giving them access to it, and a way of branding Metric Insights as well to your own needs. So with that, I guess the summary is 5.3 available now. Those three main pieces of functionality that we touched on. If you haven't installed, you'll probably be installing 5.3.1, which will include the portal pages, which are coming out next week. And with that, we'll just see if there's any more Q&A. I do see one that came in around security on the SAC stuff. There is, so security on SAC is tied into Metric Insights as well. So essentially, there's the ability to control what content is being available to the user through the SAC channels that you're putting the app on. So we can be sure that it's being persisted down into a third-party tool.
So Mike, for these external pages, does the viewer needs to have a Metric Insight user ID to view them if they're sitting in our intranet instead of inside the MI application?
So the answer is yes, because essentially, even though it's in an external page, as someone accesses that page, if I just go back to our demo here, even when I come to this page, I'm still accessing live content. So if we're using a single sign-on environment, it's logging me into Metric Insights when I come to this page. If we aren't, then it would have asked me to log into Metric Insights when I come to this page, even though it's not existing directly within the UI that you're used to. All right. Well, I think we hit our 45 minutes almost to the spot. I'm just checking in with Zoe. Nothing else on the chat or the Q&A. Oh, great. If there's interested in seeing this more, obviously reach out to us. We can do more detailed demos. This recording will be available on the blog probably Monday, Tuesday of next week. And if there's customers on the line who are interested in either getting upgraded to the latest releases or looking at the SAC integration, then please reach out to us directly or your account managers, and we'll get that going. But thanks for your time today, and we'll speak to you soon.